On February 18, 2025, just before closing time in a small independent repair shop tucked behind a strip mall off the interstate, a silver crossover rolled into my bay with hazard lights still blinking. The driver was not angry. He was not stressed. He was confused. He said 3 warning lights had come on at once that morning. The car felt off, and a dealership had already quoted him nearly $2,000. Today, I am revealing why moments like this almost never mean your car is broken, and how a few free resets can fix problems most shops hope you never question. I have seen this exact scene play out hundreds of times. A driver walks in bracing for bad news, already halfway convinced their car is dying. They have Googled symptoms, they have read horror stories, they have been told words like module failure, internal fault, or system malfunction. By the time they reach my shop, they are emotionally prepared to spend money they should not have to spend. This driver handed me a printed estimate: new throttle body, software update, diagnostic fee, labor, taxes. The car had barely crossed 70,000 miles. I did not even touch a wrench. I did not pull a single part. I did not order anything. 15 minutes later, every warning light was gone, the idle was smooth, and the transmission shifted like nothing had ever been wrong. That moment right there is why this video matters. Because modern cars do not fail the way older cars did. They do not always break. More often, they get confused. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The majority of problems drivers experience today are not mechanical failures. They are data problems, corrupted memory, conflicting inputs, learned behaviors that no longer match reality. Your car is no longer just metal and fuel. It is a rolling computer network, packed with modules that constantly learn, adapt, and make decisions without you ever noticing. And when that learning goes wrong, the symptoms can look catastrophic. I have been working on cars for over 2 decades, and I can tell you without hesitation that the last 10 years changed everything. Vehicles now contain dozens, and sometimes over 100 electronic control modules. The engine has a brain. The transmission has a brain. The brakes have a brain. Even the windows and door locks have a brain. And all of them talk to each other constantly. They store memory. They adapt to how you drive. They compensate for sensor readings. They adjust fuel delivery, shift timing, throttle response, and idle speed based on patterns they think are correct. But here is the problem. Once bad data gets stored, the system does not question it. It trusts it. If a sensor sends a wrong reading once, the module adapts. If voltage drops during a weak battery start, the module adapts. If you replace a part but do not reset the system, the module keeps compensating for a problem that no longer exists. And suddenly, your car feels wrong, even though nothing is physically broken. This is why drivers hear phrases like intermittent fault or no problem found. It is why a car can feel terrible one day and perfectly fine the next. It is why warning lights can come and go without explanation. And it is why so many people are paying for parts they never needed. Shops do not always explain this, and sometimes they do not even recognize it themselves. The industry is still built around replacing components. A reset does not look impressive on an invoice. It does not justify a big bill. It does not sound like expertise, so it gets skipped. But resets work constantly. I have seen transmissions shift harshly after a battery replacement. I have seen engines idle rough after routine maintenance. I have seen fuel economy drop by 30% with no mechanical cause. I have seen air conditioning blow hot on one side and cold on the other. And I have seen all of it disappear after the right reset was performed in the right order. Think about your phone for a moment. When it starts lagging, freezing, or acting strangely, you do not assume the processor is damaged. You restart it. You clear the cache. You reset the system. Cars are no different now. The only difference is most drivers were never taught to think of them that way. That is where this video comes in. Once you understand how modern cars think, you stop being afraid of warning lights. You stop panicking over quotes. You stop assuming the worst. And more importantly, you stop wasting money. In this video, I am going to walk you through the exact reset procedures I use in my own shop, free methods that clear corrupted data, force modules to relearn correctly, and restore normal behavior without replacing a single part. These are not hacks. They are not myths. They are legitimate diagnostic steps used every day by technicians who understand how modern vehicles actually operate. And I will also be honest with you. Resets do not fix everything. There are times when a real mechanical failure exists, and I will show you how to recognize those moments too. Knowing when a reset works is just as important as knowing when it will not. By the end of this video, you will understand why so many serious car problems disappear in minutes, why shops rarely start with resets, and how to take control of your vehicle before it drains your wallet. Your car is not broken nearly as often as you have been led to believe. Once you see how simple these fixes really are, you will never look at a warning light the same way again. Most drivers never realize how fragile the digital side of their car really is. They assume problems come from worn parts, broken components, or bad luck. But once you understand how modern vehicles actually think, a very different picture emerges. Your car is not reacting to the world directly, it's reacting to data. When that data goes bad, everything that depends on it starts making the wrong decisions, perfectly, confidently, and expensively. Inside every modern vehicle are dozens of control modules, quietly talking to each other every second. The engine control unit decides how much fuel to inject. The transmission control module decides when and how hard to shift. The body control module manages lights, locks, windows, and security. None of them feel anything. They trust numbers, sensor values, learned behavior, stored memory. When those numbers drift or become corrupted, the system doesn't panic. It adapts. And that adaptation is where the trouble begins. Imagine a car that once had a dirty mass airflow sensor. For weeks, maybe months, the sensor reported less air than was actually entering the engine. The ECU responded by adding more fuel to protect the engine from running lean. That adaptation was saved. Later, the sensor is cleaned or replaced, and the airflow is now correct, but the ECU is still compensating for a problem that no longer exists. So the engine runs rich. Fuel economy drops. Idle feels off. Acceleration becomes sluggish. The driver replaces spark plugs, changes the oil, and switches gas brands. Nothing fixes it. Because the problem is not hardware anymore. It is memory. This is why so many cars get worse after maintenance. A new battery is installed, and the voltage characteristics change slightly. The modules do not reset properly. Suddenly, the transmission shifts harshly, the idle hunts, and warning lights flicker. Shops diagnose the symptoms instead of the cause. A sensor tests borderline, so it is replaced. The car improves a little, then degrades again. The cycle continues. Each step costs money. None of it addresses the corrupted logic at the core. One of the most common triggers is unstable voltage. A weak battery does not just cause slow starts, it causes modules to brown out, brief moments where voltage drops below operating thresholds. During those moments, data gets written incorrectly. Adaptations freeze mid-calculation. Reference values get skewed. The car does not forget. It keeps using that broken information until something forces it to stop. And most shops never perform that reset unless specifically instructed to. Then there is the issue of driving pattern memory. Modern cars learn how you drive. If you accelerate gently for months, the transmission adapts with softer shifts. If you tow once or drive aggressively during a trip, the shift logic changes. The ECU stores fuel trim behavior based on short-term conditions and slowly locks them into long-term memory. Over time, small deviations stack up. The system becomes over-adapted. Everything technically works, but nothing feels right. That is why drivers often say it did not happen all at once. Fuel economy slowly fades. Shifts become inconsistent. Throttle response dulls. No single event triggers it. The car simply drifts away from its optimal state. And because there is no dramatic failure, no warning light screaming for attention, the problem goes unnoticed until it becomes expensive. This is where reset procedures become powerful, not as tricks, but as legitimate diagnostic tools. A reset is not erasing a problem. It is removing assumptions. It forces the car to stop trusting outdated data and start observing reality again. When done correctly, it reveals whether a symptom is being caused by bad logic or by bad hardware. Take the simplest example, a full battery disconnect reset. When power is cut properly and residual voltage is drained, modules lose their adaptive memory. Fuel trims reset. Idle control relearns. Transmission shift logic clears. When the car restarts, it behaves differently, not because anything was fixed mechanically, but because the computer is no longer compensating for ghosts. Then there is targeted fuse resets. Instead of rebooting the entire vehicle, you isolate a single system. A transmission acting strange after fluid service? Reset only the transmission control module, TCM. An infotainment screen frozen or glitching? Reset just that module. A body control module causing random electrical behavior? Pull its fuse. These are not hacks. They are reinitializations that engineers expect to happen, but they rarely explain that to owners. What surprises most people is how often these resets work. Not occasionally, not as a fluke, but consistently. Because most modern problems are not failures. They are misunderstandings between sensors, software, and stored behavior. And here is the uncomfortable part. Many repair shops know this, but resets do not generate revenue. They do not justify invoices. They do not sell parts. So they are rarely offered as a first step. Instead, diagnostics point toward replacements, sensors, modules, entire assemblies, each one addressing a symptom that could vanish the moment the system is forced to relearn. This does not mean resets fix everything. Real mechanical failures exist. Worn clutches, broken solenoids, damaged wiring. But resets are the filter. They separate logic errors from physical damage. If a reset fixes the problem, you just saved hundreds or thousands. If it does not, you have lost nothing except a bit of time and you have gained clarity. And this is the moment most drivers never reach. They never see how much control they actually have. They never realize that their car's brain can be rebooted, refreshed, and corrected without touching a single bolt. Because once you understand this, the next step becomes unavoidable. You do not just want to know why resets work. You want to know exactly which ones to use, when to use them, and how to perform them without causing new problems. And that is where everything changes. By the time most drivers reach this point, they already feel two emotions at once. Relief, because they realize their car might not be broken, and anger, because they realize how close they came to spending money they never needed to spend in the first place. This is where everything comes together, because resets are not just emergency tricks. They are a mindset shift. Once you understand how modern cars actually fail, you stop reacting emotionally and start diagnosing logically. Here is the truth. Most shops never say out loud. Modern vehicles do not age the way old cars did. Engines do not just wear out at random. Transmissions do not suddenly forget how to shift because metal vanished overnight. What actually happens is much quieter. Data drifts. voltage fluctuates. Sensors lie just enough to confuse the system, and the car does exactly what it was programmed to do. It adapts. The ECU adapts fuel delivery. The transmission control module adapts shift timing. The body control module adapts lighting, locks, and safety systems. Over months and years, those adaptations stack on top of each other until the car feels wrong. Not broken, just wrong. This is why resets are so powerful. They do not repair parts. They remove assumptions. They wipe away decisions the car made when something was not quite right. A weak battery last winter. A dirty sensor 6 months ago. A short trip routine that never let the engine fully warm up. The car learned around those conditions and then kept using that data long after the conditions changed. A reset forces the system to stop guessing and start listening again. But this is also where most people misuse resets. They treat them like magic. They reset once, do not follow through, and then say it did not work. A reset is not the end of the process. It is the beginning. After a reset, the car needs clean data to relearn from. That means fixing obvious vacuum leaks, making sure the air filter is not clogged, ensuring battery voltage is stable, using decent fuel, and driving normally instead of hammering the throttle immediately after a reset. The relearn phase matters more than the reset itself. I have seen drivers sabotage a perfectly good reset by starting the engine and flooring it 5 seconds later. All that teaches the ECU to panic. If you want smooth idle, good fuel economy, and clean shifts, you have to let the system relearn under calm and predictable conditions. Idle time, light throttle, steady cruising. That is how the car rebuilds its baseline correctly. And here is the most important distinction you need to understand. Resets fix data problems. They do not fix broken hardware. If a sensor is dead, a wire is corroded, or a mechanical part is worn beyond spec, a reset will not save it. But what resets do give you is clarity. If you reset and the problem disappears, you just saved yourself hundreds or thousands. If you reset and the problem comes back quickly, you now know it is real. Not a ghost, not corrupted memory. A genuine fault that deserves attention. That alone puts you ahead of most drivers. Instead of guessing, you are testing. Instead of reacting, you are confirming. That is how professionals think, even if they do not always explain it that way. What makes this uncomfortable for the industry is that resets do not scale financially. There is no part to sell, no labor hours to bill, no warranty claim to submit. A 5-minute fix that solves the problem does not fit a system built around replacements and rebuilds. That does not mean mechanics are evil. It means the incentives are skewed. The person who benefits most from resets is you. Once you start thinking this way, everything changes. A warning light becomes information, not fear. A rough idle becomes a clue, not a sentence. A strange shift becomes a signal, not a catastrophe. You stop assuming the worst and start verifying the truth. This is why I keep saying that knowing when to reset is just as important as knowing how. Reset after battery replacement. Reset after throttle cleaning. Reset after sensor replacement. Reset when symptoms appear without codes. Reset when the car feels off but nothing obvious is broken. But do not reset blindly every week hoping to fix neglect. Resets are not maintenance substitutes. They are correction tools. And if there is one final idea I want to leave you with, it is this. Modern cars reward informed owners. The more you understand how data, sensors, and modules interact, the less control fear has over your decisions. You stop being easy prey for scare quotes and worst-case scenarios. You start asking better questions. You start saving real money. I have watched people drive away smiling because their car suddenly felt right again. Not louder, not faster, just balanced, smooth idle, clean shifts, normal fuel economy. That feeling is not magic. It is what happens when the car is finally operating on accurate information again. So, before you authorize a repair, before you assume the worst, before you hand over your credit card, reset, observe, confirm, then decide. If this changed the way you think about car problems, hit like so more drivers see it. Subscribe if you want weekly breakdowns that give you control instead of confusion. And if you have ever fixed a problem with a reset that a shop wanted to charge you for, drop it in the comments. Those stories matter. Because the most expensive car problem is not the one that breaks your vehicle. It is the one that breaks your confidence. And now, you have the knowledge to take that confidence back.